Good day, everyone. Today we will be discussing the coastal ecosystem. As you all know, previously we have discussed the freshwater ecology, and we have found out that there are different types of ecosystem in the freshwater ecology. We have learned the term limnology and what are the lotic and lentic ecosystem, as well as the lentic and lotic series and what are their possible successions in each of the ecosystem. Now, today we will be going down to the lower altitude types of ecosystem, which is the coastal ecosystem. Here in this module, we will be identifying or differentiating what is coastal ecosystem versus the ocean environment, and also we will be also discussing or determining the different types of estuaries or estuarine environment, and how does this estuaries be formed originally. And also we will also be tackling more about the importance of this coastal ecosystem, as well as the blue carbon, because the trend nowadays mainly evolved in the blue carbon, and also the benefits and threats of these coastal environments, particularly the mangrove areas. So hopefully we could finish all the topics involving the coastal ecosystem. Okay, so let's proceed. First and foremost, when we talk about coastal ecosystem, we must not forget to differentiate the coastal ecosystem or the coastal waters versus the open ocean. So, the primary difference between the two is that the depth, no? So, the primary difference between coastal waters and the open ocean is only the depth, ang kalayumon. So, ano kalayom si Ja? Kung layom kasi si Ja, that is already considered as the ocean or open ocean. There is what we call as the neretic zone and the oceanic zone. So the neretic zone or the neretic areas are basically areas where the light penetration can go up to the bottom of the water, more or less mga 200 or 150 to 200 meters. So dira nga mga areas are considered as the neretic zone. All other areas that basically the sunlight or the light from the sun can no longer reach the bottom of the ocean or the bottom of the body of the water, it is already considered as the oceanic zone. So take note of that. Actually, we have already done discussing that in our previous module. So just take a look at on how to differentiate neretic and oceanic zones. Okay, so because of shallowness of coastal waters, river runoff and tidal currents have far more significant effect on them than the open ocean. No, because of their geographic location, because of their depth, basically the coastal areas are far more important than the open ocean. Why? Because the primary productivity in the coastal areas or the primary productivity of photosynthesis basically or generally happen in the coastal areas. So um, um, therefore, the coastal areas are basically the very rich areas, very diverse areas. As you can see, most of the research studies are now being focused on the coastal environment. In fact, we have here in Siargao different types or different groups of non-government organizations conducting studies on mangroves, conducting studies on biodiversity of corals, conducting studies in the biodiversity or seagrass bed cover and coral reef assessment studies. So all biodiversity studies, all of these studies mainly is done in the coastal areas. And the part or generally mainly the reason why is that the coastal areas are the very productive area in among the all marine ecosystems or all aquatic ecosystems, the coastal areas. So areas of research, areas of development are on the trend in the coastal areas, right? So that's basically the primary reasons why. What primary of the reasons why. And the third is that although the physical factors such as the salinity, temperature are much more variable near the shore, when you say variable, it will greatly vary, no? Grabe ka fluctuating ang iyang salinity. When we talk about salinity, ang iyang kaparaton, alright? Ang iyang temperature but pasabot ka initon or kabugnawon. So meaning to say, the variation or the diversity of the salinity composition, the temperature composition, mag-vary gyud kaayo sa coastal environment. Why? When we talk about the variation of salinity in the coastal ecosystem, nganong mag-vary man siya? It's because katong mga tubig gikan sa suba, katong tubig gikan sa suba masambog nimo sa tubig sa dagat, of course maglahi gid na ang level of salinity, di ba? So gitawag nato na siya kasagaran kay kung tubig sa suba tawagon nato na siya og fresh water. Kung tubig sa dagat tawagon nato siya og salt water or marine water. Now kung tubig sa fresh water o tubig sa marine water magmix, muna gitawag nato brackish water. Okay? So sa naon nato na siyang na-discuss. The point here is that there is really a great difference or great variation when it comes to salinity, temperature in the coastal areas. It's because it's the two types of ecosystems met, no? Sometimes in the ecology we term that as ecotone, no? Ecotone. There is an area where the two types of communities meet, no? Dito sila magtagbo, so that we call as ecotone. Now, food is very plentiful that these regions are packed with life. So as you can see, daghan kayong managatay diri sa coastal areas kumpara sa open waters gyud, no? It's because the most productive areas are basically the coastal areas, no, not the open oceans gyud kayo. Although there are a lot of open oceans are also productive, but they are not very diverse. Ang makuha nato dito is ra. Wala tayong makuha ng mga mollusks and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's basically the rationale of this module. Now, let us proceed to the types of estuarine or inshore ecosystems. When we say inshore ecosystems, these are basically ecosystems inshore or kanang nasa beach, no? Ang iyang ang terrestrial, land o ang aquatic environment meets, no? Dira sila mag-meet. So there is the first type is the rocky shore, as you can see here in these pictures, no? Rocky shore, puro sila batuhon. Apoy other types na tidal estuary dominated by salt marshes. So as you can see here, dominated by minor forms of plants, mga grasses. So this is gitawag nato tidal estuary. These are rocky shore types of marine ecosystem. Okay? So those are the different classifications. Now, let us then describe how does the term estuary was being coined upon, no? From the estuaries came from the Latin term istos or tide, refers to the semi-enclosed body of water where the salinity is intermediate between salt and fresh water and where tidal action is an important physical regulator and energy subsidy. Okay, so basically that's where the term estuaries was coined out, no? Nagikan ang term nga estuary. All estuaries in existence today originated as a result of sea level rise over the past 18,000 years. So kabantay mo kanang mga floodplains isahay kanang uban coastal environment, kanang mga batuhon nga mga baybay or kanang mga bato nga daplin sa dagat, kanang mga tutagkaob na ito makita diha na mga bato na dagko kasagaran na murag mag-sea nga type. That is an indication that that particular portion was flooded with sea long before, no? Sa nauna dito ni abot ang dagat, but because of sea level climate change perhaps or the decrease in sea level, magkaubos ang level sa seawater. Okay? The sea level has risen 120 meters due to the melting of major continental glaciers. This is a result also from the global warming, what they call as the global warming, no? Natawag na global warming or the greenhouse effect, wherein it basically alter the composition of the glaciers that has been frozen for a very long period of time, and then kining mga glacier, kining mga masses of ice will melt, and then so therefore these masses of ice will be disseminated to the open ocean and then affecting the coastal environments of the small islands. In fact, there is one nation somewhere in the Pacific that flooded na gyud siya. Nabot ang ilang highway sa sea level rise. Sa una highway pa to siya, layo pa ang dagat. Kuman naabot na ang dagat dito sa ilang highway because of the sea level rise. Particularly, the main reason is that the global warming or the greenhouse effect, no? And the most common is a river mouth where it empties the sea, no? Common kayo nga story ang kanang mga bukana sa suba. Munay pinaka basic or pinaka common nga type of estuarine environments, because estuarine environments primarily implies to brackish water ecosystem. Brackish means to say it's where the fresh water and the marine water meets. And then the coastal bays are some of the examples, mga inlets, mga gulfs and sound, and are also considered as estuaries, no? When we say bay, no, di ba tayo tawag na um, lagoon, sa pa tawag na Manila Bay, natay tawag na Manila Bay, di ba? That is basically a body of water that is bordered with land masses in opposite sides. No, nag U-shape siya. So that is a kind of estuary kanang bay. Ang inlets are also body of water that is bordered with masses of land but smaller ang iyaang pagka U-shape. Gamay ra siya compare sa bay. Ang Gulf, however, ang Gulf naman tayo gitawag na Davao Gulf. So if you search the word Davao Gulf, dako na siya na estuarine environments, no? Dako na kayo na siya nga U-shape. Dako pa siya sa bay. So the order is that gamay ang inlet, dako-dako ang bay, and then dako pagyud ang Gulf ana niya. Some areas are gitawag na to mga sounds, no? Kanang gamay-gamay pagyud siya. Mga sounds are considered also estuaries. Now here we have the classification of estuaries based on the origins, no? There is what we call as the coastal plain, no? Kini siya nga type of estuary. Coastal plain is straight rig siya, wala siya yung mga so whatsoever nga mga portions. Coastal plain. Ang fjord, this is pronounced as fjord, no? Ang fjord layo ang iyang depth but basically straight lang iyang pagka divide, no? A fjord na siya. Kini is shallower, kini is deeper. And then the bar belt estuary. Bar belt estuary is basically duha ka buok kanang nagform og lagoon, ato na siyang i-define later on. So kini ang mainland, kini ang ocean, kini ang lagoon nga na form because of this land masses, no? Because of these land masses naka-form sa lagoon, and then this is basically the dagat na. Okay, so kini nga type nga estuary is called as bar belt. And then there is what we call as the tectonic history. An estuary that is basically formed because of tectonic movement. So basically kini nisaka ang kini nga plate, kini nasaka ang kini nga plate, and then kini ni kunhod kini nga plate, making the water to enter in this particular location. So because of the originally kini siya nga type of estuary is because of the tectonic movement. So that's the reason why this is called as tectonic history. Alright, so let's first take a look at the floodplain or the coastal plain. So coastal plain is basically formed as a rising level caused by the oceans to invade the existing river valleys. So this is basically wala pa ni siya na flooded with rivers na una, or pa ni siya na flooded with oceans na una because of sea level rise. Niabot na diri ang ocean. So sa nauna diri pataman siguro ang river, kay ubos mo man ang level sa ocean, tapos pagkahuman nisaka na kay nag sea level rise, niabot na diri ang brackish water area. So this is basically termed as a coastal plain because of the invasion of the ocean to the existing river valleys. Okay, so that's coastal plain. And then next one is the fjord, or an estuarine formed by a glacier movements, no? That is a U-shaped valleys with steep walls. Like for example, this one, steep kaya na siya, layom kaya na siya, or I mean habog kaya na siya, no? Dili siya yung plain gyud nga pares atong coastal plain. Kini is habog nga mga areas, mountainous U-shaped valleys with steep walls. Kini siya is habog kaya na siya. As you can see here, habog nga o layom nga mga depth. So have a glacial deposits forms near the ocean entrance common in Norway, Canada, New Zealand, Alaska, and some portions of the temperate environments or temperate regions. The third type is the barbelt. Katong gayon kaganihan na lagoon. So in this case, this is a picture of a lagoon. No, na barbelt niya diri na murag land masses, and there is where the ocean enters upon the lagoon. So basically this is type of barbelt estuary. Okay? So muna siya klase. In fact, we have here in the Philippines perhaps that is considered as barbelt kanang diha sa Manila Dibay, no? And then we have here the tectonic history that produced by faulting or folding of rocks forms a restricted down dropped area which the river flows, no? Like for example kanang sa Golden State Warriors nga logo. So kini siya is sa San Francisco Bay, California, created by shifting together and lifting apart the Earth's crust. Sa nauna, nagtagbo pa na sila because of the tectonic plate movement mo nang nagkabulag, and then gi-bridge na nila. That makes a very iconic picture sa bridge kini. Permintiyan nato ni siya makitaan sa mga movies and sa asa pa. Okay, so this is basically as a result of tectonic plate movement. That's why it's called tectonic history. Okay, next is the classification of histories based on the 4 patterns of circulation. All right. Excuse me. So first classification of history based on the mixing, no? Atong gi-mention kaganiha, the reason why the histories are very diverse is that there is a melting pot between 2 different types of environment. Melting pot meaning to say nagtagbo ang nagkalahi-lahi nga type of environment. That's the reason why it is very diverse. So here we have the vertically mixed history, no? This is basically the the head of the river. This is the mouth, no? This is basically the increasing salinity of the estuary, no? Shallow, low volume estuaries where the net flow always proceeds to the river head of the estuary towards the estuary's mouth. Salinity at any point is uniform from the surface to the bottom because the river and ocean waters mix all depths, no? Dili moabot sa point nga diri rataman ang salt water tapos diri ang fresh water. Kaya ang tendency manggod kung naa ang suba dool sa dagat, ang tendency the salt water will sink. Okay? Denser man siya. So diri siya mo paubos pa ilayom. Pero kay mabaw ra man nga area, tanan layer or tanan depth sa imo ang estuarine environment, uniform ang iya ang salinity. Diri taman 10 ppt, diri taman 20 parts per thousand, diri taman 30 parts per thousand. Okay, so ingana nga distribution because of the shallow nature of this type of estuarine environment. Okay, so the salinity increases from river to the head mouth. The farther the freshwater it gets to the ocean, of course, the higher the salinity it gets, no? Diri ang higher gid nga salinity kay naman siya sa dagat. There is no variation in salinity with regards to its depth sa iyang kalawomon. Parehas na siya uniform from the surface to bottom. Okay, more or less uniform. And then second type is slightly stratified estuary, no? Slightly stratified estuary, somewhat deeper estuary in which the salinity increases from head to mouth at any depth, as in vertical mixing, no? You can see here that there is now nagka-incline nga salinity distribution. Okay? So diri na level 10 at to this level diri naliko siya 10 ppt, and then pag-abot diri naliko pod kay layom-layom naman siya na part. There is now a variation between the surface depth, no? Nice variation sa salinity between surface depth. All right? So I hope that's clear, and then let's proceed to the other. That's basically the one of the explanations, and then slightly stratified, the same, no? What do you call this classical pattern of circulation? We call this as estuarine circulation. All right. The third one is what we call as the highly stratified estuary. When we say highly stratified story, from the word stratified or stratification, stratification means layering. So since it is considered as highly layered story, grabe ang variation sa salinity with regards to the depth or the layering, no? So as you can see here, the 10 ppt is only at the surface. Wala na gid ka makita na 10 ppt diri sa pinakaubos. So ang 10 ppt or parts per thousand is diri sa ibabaw. Then 20 ppt dira, 30 ppt na dayon kini nga surface hangtod diri sa pinakadalong. Wala kay makita nga level sa higher lower salinity diri sa ilalom because the seawater is more denser, so it tends to sink in the bottom. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Now, okay, so here we have a trivia. What happens to the less saline water? Less saline surface water moves from head to mouth of the estuary, growing more saline as the water from the depth mass joins it. Okay, so as you can see here, no, ang less dense magpaibabaw ra, ang more dense magpailawom. Okay, so number 4 is what we call as the salt wedge estuary. Salt wedge estuary meaning to say this is a type of circulation of the estuary where the river inputs is much more heavier or much more larger than the seawater inputs. This is basically true to some of the bays, mga katong mga barbell bays or barbell type of estuary. So as you can see here, ang river na diri nagdominate sa ining area, tapos ang mouth sa ocean diri ra nga level, diri ra sa pinakaubos. Skibali salt wedge meaning to say the salt environment is inferior with the freshwater environment. Okay, so you could read that, pause for a while and then read the definition. So same, and then we have here trivia. Relatively strong what is halocene? No? What is halocene? Or halocline rather. Halocline meaning to say here. Halocline is the layer of the water which has a high rate of salinity change in the vertical dimension. Okay, so there is a very high variation with regards to the salinity level with respect to the layer or the depth of the ocean. Okay, estuaries tend to be more productive than either the sea on one side and the freshwater drainage on the other. Why estuaries are highly productive? Nganong high productive man kayong estuaries? Anong productive kayong mga estuaries? It's because here, because estuaries provide nursery grounds for most coastal shellfish and fish harvested not only in the estuary but also offshore. No? Kita mo kita na kabalo mo kita kini mga mangrove mga seagrass beds are basically the nursing grounds of most of the aquatic environment or aquatic organisms. Secondly, the net primary productivity is very high. Support most of the productive fisheries occur in this. The net primary productivity meaning to say the rate of photosynthesis basically occur in this level or occur in this area. So diri nga mga area sa estuarine environment region mag-occur ang photosynthesis nga naman. It allows the plant to grow, no? Sa bottom sa ocean, sa estuarine environment makagrow ang plant. Makagrow ang plant because they can be penetrated by the sunlight when compared to the ocean. Ang sa ocean wala may maabtan sa light nga bottom. So law man kayo, so di mo abot ang light dito. And so therefore, walay process of photosynthesis except for the microscopic plants, mga phytoplanktons and so on and so forth. Okay, so nga na nga considerations. That's one of the main reasons why productive kayo ang estuarine environments. Third reason, it's because efficient nutrient trap that is partially physically and partly biologically present in the estuarine environment. This particular property enhances the capacity of the estuary to absorb nutrients in waste provided that the organic matter is reduced by 2% treatment or secondary treatment. So meaning to say, kining mga mangrove, kining mga seagrass beds, dira ma-deposit ang mga minerals and nutrients needed for the growth of plant. So since dira man ma-absorb ang mga nutrients, ang plant pod mo ay mag-produce. Sila may magpahamok, magpa-diverse, at magpa-attract og laing nga mga organisms to gather in that particular area kay productive man sila. Alright? So those are the three main reasons why estuaries are very important, are very diverse. Okay? Now, if you take a look at the distribution of estuaries with regards to the estuarine cover, we could see here in these green regions that most estuarine covers are basically located in the tropical regions, no? Kasagaran gyud may makita nato diha sa tropical regions. By the way, we must first differentiate unsay tropical region from the temperate region. Mayon gani kog tropical region mo ni siya ang areas where duol siya sa equator sa Earth. Okay? So kabalong taas ang equator sa tunga-tunga sa Earth. So diri gina siya nga area ang kasagaran makita nato na na diha ang mga estuarine environments. Nga naman, rich in siya nga estuarine environments because these are the areas where it is typically exposed with the sunlight. Okay? So since na dominant kayo ang sunlight diri pod dominant mo grow ang mga dominant species of plants. Okay? So there's our country. So diha makita ang diverse nga mga areas of estuarine environments. Unlike diri sa area nga kini dili magid ka makakita diri kasagaran og mga estuarine environments kay these are basically frozen man sometimes because sunlight cannot grow in this area. So this is the tropical region. This one kining duha diri are temperate region. Diri temperate region na diri na mga part. Ang subtropical is basically in between tropical and temperate. So subtropical ni diri, subtropical po ni diri. Ang polar regions are here. North Pole and South Pole. So polar regions ang tawag nato ng duha. Okay? So the classification is that. And the variation and the diversity of the regions mainly vary because of the exposure of the sun throughout the year. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Now let's proceed to the mangroves and the importance of mangroves, particularly that the Siargao is mainly covered with mangroves and there are different types of the species found herein, and it was recorded that 27 out of the 70 mangrove species in the world are found in the municipality of Del Carmen Mangroves. Okay, so the mangroves in Siargao comprise of the largest or the country's largest contiguous mangrove stand. Kita mo'y pinakabaga nga mangrove with regards to the span, no? Walay putol-putol. Straight ra gina siya. Walay putol. Unlike sa sa Palawan. Ang Palawan mo'y grabe kadaghan og mangrove pero patsa-patsa, no? Patak-patak ang ila ang mga kuan, mga mangrove cover. Okay? So, there. Over 4,295 hectares ang atong mangrove cover. That is according to a certain data. And extreme poverty and limited socio-economic opportunities, however, compelled thousands of families to cut mangroves for livelihood, primarily to sold as firewood. So this was a statement of the local government of Del Carmen that the formerly illegal cutters of mangroves are now being diverted to some livelihood, particularly the tourism. Ang sanauna nga mga manguturay o mangrove para ulingon kuman mga operator na spam boat because sa tourism boom or the boom of tourism here in Del Carmen, the Sugbalagun, Kauhagan, and asa pa silang ganto. Kay there was a time gani nga mao mga 100 plus ka pang boats makabiyahe sa Kabanlaw. So just imagine that kind of tourists nga mga boat. Okay, so ideally the law enforcement has something to do with that, and also not just the law enforcement but also the information dissemination on the proper alignment on how to mold the mindset of the community and the mindset of the people, especially the coastal community people. All right, so that's basically the one of the importance why mangroves should be maintained, no? Kay mangroves are basically later on we will discuss how does this mangrove affect the lifestyle of the people, how does this affect or how does this protect us from natural disasters, and how does this retain the waste and act as buffer zone, how does this signifies and gives shelter to the aquatic organisms and serves as nursery grounds sa mga aquatic organisms. All right. Now, if you take a look at the mangrove protected areas under the IUCN delineated protected areas mo na ato ang record, no. Ang protected area gyud yung mga mangrove areas, pinakaunang pinakaluwag nga protected area when it comes to the mangrove cover is the Palawan. Second na diha ang diri sa ato sa Siargao. Mainly covers 7,358 hectares of mangrove covers, no. Nga na nga mga data or nga na nga mga areas ang atong kinahanglan protektahan. And that's the reason why we have what we call as the PAMB or the Protected Area Management Board. They are the ones responsible for approving and disapproving studies to be conducted in the protected areas, particularly in the mangrove area. So kung may mga thesis sa sunod in relation to the mangrove, you have to present it to the management board so that you will have a warrant, no, na may certification nga pwede na mo mag-conduct og studies, and all of your studies should not harm the mangrove areas. Okay? So tanan dapat ecologically friendly ang atong mga methodologies. Alright. Now, if we take a look at the provinces with majority of the mangrove extent, ang Surigao del Norte is ranked number 5. Okay? So, nanguna diha ang Palawan, Sulu, and then Quezon, Zamboanga, Sibugay, and then nahiya pa rin ang atong Surigao del Norte. Surigao del Norte not just basically covers the Siargao, but also covers the Hinatuan, some portions of the Surigao del Norte that mainly not involved or not included or not part of the Siargao Island. Okay? Now, let's proceed to the extent of the importance of the mangrove areas. So, mangrove areas basically promote the biodiversity, no? Diha magid makita nato mga migrating birds or migratory birds, and then mga crocodiles, and then mga mollusks, mga clams, crabs, crustaceans, and so on and so forth. So, this is the home of most shellfish, migratory birds, sea turtles, and any kinds of fish are basically living in here. And in fact, one of the experts from UP Los Baños said that the mangrove cover in Del Carmen is very unique. Why is that? It's because the mangrove and the corals are not normally observed in one place. Dili gina siya kasagaran mag-abot. It's because corals tend to grow in areas where waters are very pristine. When we say pristine, grabe ka tinaw, no? Here in Del Carmen, we have the mangrove cover. But along that mangrove cover, you could observe coralline areas, no? Daghan mga coralline areas. That makes us unique. Ang atong diversity diri unique kayo. Because kasagaran mga mangrove areas dili pristine ang water. Dili tinaw kayo ang water. Here in Del Carmen, makakita tag areas nga black pero ang water are clear, no? Ang iyang bottom is black but the water is clear. Okay, so that's the idea there. That's basically the reason why it supports very vast amount of species diversity, and it caters a lot of kinds of species across the aquatic ecosystems and terrestrial ecosystems, even the avifaunal species. Avifaunal meaning to say mga birds, no? Okay, so that's first. Second reason is the mangrove areas basically supports livelihood. This photo is taken from the Kamamana. No? This is basically organization or people's organization here in Del Carmen. So a lot of people basically subsides on this particular mangroves. They rely on mangroves for livelihood. They protect the mangroves, they conserve the mangroves, they organize a certain organization and then plant mangroves so that these mangroves will give them livelihood, given the fact that these are the nursery grounds of the fishes that they will be catching in the open oceans. So katong mga isda nga makuha nimo sa dagat, sa lawod, dili na sila nang itlog. So kung pangutdo nimo ng mga mangrove, di gid na sila maghamok. Okay? So ang pagpasabot sa community, ang pagpasabot sa komunidad on how important mangroves are, even if commercial fishers ka, even if ang imong pangita wala diri sa mangrove, kinahanglan masabta na sa community tungod kay tanan nga areas nga naa diha sa community tanan nga areas na diha sa mangrove area dito sa open ocean diri sa terrestrial land is connected, no? Tanan na sila connected. Dili ka makaingon nga kini siya is independent nga area. Tanan na sila independent. Magdepende ang isa ka area from the other areas. And that's the reason why information dissemination towards the community is very important. Sooner or later, when you will be graduating the course of fisheries, passing the board exam, you have to understand and you have to inform the people on how to manage and protect and conserve these resources for the use of the future generations. So, I am counting on you sa sunod kung kamo na galing diri ang mag-manage. Okay? So, that's basically the second reason why mangroves are very important. The third reason is that this is also a picture of Del Carmen, right? Okay? So, water, no? Mangroves are essential to maintain water quality. Nga naman, mangroves acts as a filters, no? Kanang atong mga lipa gikan sa mga bayay-bayay, katong mga linabhan nato, katong mga kuan nato. Dili na siya mulahos dito sa open ocean. Dili na siya mulahos diri because natay mga mangrove nga magsaya. Sila ang mag-absorb sa mga waste nato dira gikan sa mga bayay-bayay, mga restaurant, mga hotel, mga asa pa na, mga gipanglabay nga mga tinai sa isda, dito na siya ma-deposit. And that makes the mangroves appear black kay kana nga mga deposits will turn into organic matters, no? Organic matters will turn into black and then therefore it will not pollute the open ocean. Sila ang nagsaya. So kining cover mo nagsaya sa atong area and sa ato ang open ocean, kining open ocean will remain clean. Okay? So diri kana ang pinakauna nga important when it comes to the importance of mangroves with regards to the pollutants. Okay, now the next one is that it is a coastal defense, no? Coastal defense gina siya always. One of the one of the faculty here sa SCT Del Carmen katong mga tiguang na sa nauna kami tiguang na kuman nga naka-observe yun on how does mangrove changes the catastrophic events, no? Giyon sa pagtabang sa mangrove sa mga typhoons, sa mga tidal waves, sa mga bagyo-bagyo, sa tanan ng mga natural disasters, unsay kabaguhan sa nauna o karon. Sa nauna nga wala pa yung mangrove o karon nga wala na mangrove. Previously daw ang Del Carmen nagsuffer o grabe ka dugay naka-recover ang mga tao tungod kay nang lupad ang mga atop, nang lupad ang mga ingani, kay kusog kayo ang bagyo because ang mangrove cover is dili pa kayo nga nakabaga. Karon nga baga na kayo bisag unsa pagka dako ang bagyo nga i-forecast sa TV sa radyo, di gid nila ma-feel nga grabe ka hangin. It's because the mangrove serves as a natural defense for the community. I will show you a picture later and how does this affect or how does this became a barrier from the natural disasters and catastrophic events brought about by natural phenomenon sa area, sa coastal areas. Okay, so there is I think general knowledge on how does mangroves give help or give defense to the coastal communities. Okay, so that's the fourth reason. Now, the fifth reason is that they are the carbon storage, no? They are very efficient. Ang kasagaran nato ma-appreciate ng mga carbon assimilating organisms are mga terrestrial plants. But in fact, ang kanang kasagaran ng mga carbon nga na-assimilate are naa sa coastal environment. Ang mga mangroves, ang mga seagrass, ang mga tanan nga mga plants nga makita nimo sa aquatic environment, sila ang pinakadaghag contribution dili ang terrestrial plants. Sila ang dako kayo nga tabang sa carbon assimilation. Okay, so carbon storage na sila. Gitawag nato na sila tanan carbon nga ma-store sa aquatic environment is called the blue carbon. Take note of that. We will discuss that in a while. So blue carbon basically are the carbon stored or assimilated by the plants in the coastal or marine environment. So sequestration, you can pause this and read each of the statements, each of the lines, and how does the mangrove became important on the carbon storage. So pwede niyo ibasahon. And then next importance is that material. No? In addition to consuming fish, shellfish from mangroves communities have historically been used mangrove wood and other extracts for both building and medicinal purposes. Ang makuha nimo sa mga mangrove are not just sa nauna dili pa bawal kintahay ang kuan, wala pa yung mga regulations on how to why mangrove cutting and burning is illegal. So sa nauna, gigamit nila for firewood, gigamit nila for furnitures, kay grabe makaligo ng mangrove lagi. And then some of them are using extracts from mangroves for medicinal purposes. In fact, I mean almost all of the topics of the BS education students are involving mangroves as an extract to analyze whether for hygiene na nila gamiton, for medicinal purposes, for juice, or for whatsoever. Ang uban nagamit og mga mangrove extract for ink sa ballpen nga mga studies ang ilaha. Because the trend now basically are on the mangrove areas. Okay? So I hope that's clear. Now, the another is sustainable development. Okay? So we have here the intact healthy, no? Kinahanglan ang mangrove kung naa na siya healthy na siya permanente. By the way, this is also from Del Carmen. Buba. This is also a people's organization where they are having this nursery, no, mangrove nursery area. These are propagules of mangroves to be planted in the patches nga wala pa yung mga mangrove covers. So sila ang nag-organize. So by this, you could assure that people are already oriented, but it is not an assurance also that all of the people are already oriented. Some of the people will always go opposite sa mga campaigns and so on and so forth. So as I have mentioned a while ago, we have here the context of how the mangroves basically affect the coastal environment. I have here the larger picture. So as you can see here, this is a community without a mangrove area, and this is the community with a mangrove area. So sa nauna, ang Del Carmen wala pa yung mga mangrove kayo, of course, manglupad gito mga atop, mabahaan gina sila. But today, the mangroves became a barrier of that. So offshore dynamics, this one, nearshore dynamics, habitat, this one, and impacts and the consequences. So this is basically a result of a mangrove sustainability. So tanan maapektahan. As I have said before, these are all connected, no? So ang dynamics sa nearshore, daghan kaya sila ang diversity ani grabe na kadaghan compare sa ani. Ang habitat, of course, diverse po ng habitat because of mangroves. Ang impacts of the natural disaster will not will not significantly affect the coastal community, and so therefore some of the business will not be madamaged, dili sila kalasan og mga investments because they are protected with this. Tanan nga mga areas in the coastal environment are basically reliant or dependent on the mangrove covers, no? Diha gyud na permanente paingon ang bottom line. Okay. Now here we have the importance of the mangroves for the people and the wildlife. So as you can see here, mangroves are a primary source of livelihood for fishing, no? Some of them are using this for timber for building and other uses, no? Timber, and then some of the animals will eat mga mangrove cover, I mean dili mangrove itself but the plants from the nearby shores, and then preserve water, no? Ma-preserve ang water quality kay sila ang naghimo ng or sila ang nag-serve as filter, no? Sila ang nag-filter sa mga environment. And then nursery grounds, sila ang mga itloganan, and then more or less sila pod ang magpa-grow atong mga pispis diri sa mga seagrass beds areas. And these are basically coralline areas, no, that are basically gives us the buffer zone, no? Sila mo yung mga buffers, sila kini buffers from rainfall, tropical typhoons and so on and so forth. And then more organisms including abifaunal organisms which are birds, no? Okay, so those are the importance of mangroves. Now here we have the different or the context or the importance of mangroves in the context of climate change. Okay, so kung wala yung mangrove, of course, gamay lang assimilation of carbon dioxide. As we all know, carbon dioxide is one of the reasons why there is a global warming. Okay, because kining carbon dioxide will be deposited in the ozone layer and will trap the heat from the sun from coming back to back out in the earth, no? Sila ang mag-trap sa heat. Kining carbon dioxide kung mapikit ni siya sa ozone layer, sila ang mag-trap sa kainit gikan sa adlaw, and then mag-init na po dayon ang kalibutan. We call that as a global warming. Wherein pero kung daghan mo ang carbon, daghan mo ang mangroves and some other plants in the coastal environment, they will assimilate carbon dioxide not just from the air but also from the water, from the soil, carbons and carbon dioxide. Okay, so basically this is the context of blue carbon. Blue carbon na siya nga mga na-absorb, na-assimilate sa mga mangroves and aquatic plants sa coastal communities. Okay, now since we're talking about blue carbon, ato na siyang i-define. Blue carbon is again the carbon stored in the coastal and marine ecosystems. Tanan organisms, tanan plants na makita nimo sa marine ecosystems are assimilating carbon, and those carbon are termed in science as the blue carbon. Kini siya nga mga mangroves nga ginaga intake o carbon dioxide ang ilagay in intake are blue carbons. And katong mga seagrass, corals, mga polyps are assimilating carbon dioxide. They are assimilating blue carbon. So the coastal environment also involved mangrove areas, no? Mga mangrove kini sila. They're very important in the blue carbon assimilation. And tidal marshes, kini nga mga covers, mga minor forms of plants, mga grasses, they are at the rate of 1 to 2% per year ang ilang assimilation of carbon. And then not just tidal marshes but also seagrasses nga na dito sa mga coastal plains, no? Na sila dito nga mga seagrasses also assimilates carbon dioxide. They are also very important in the coastal ecosystem. Now pero na yung mga threat ang mga karon kay wala naman kayo mga threat ang mga mangroves nato diri, but in some other cases there will always be a threat, no? There is ato dili kayo noon pero it exists, but we do not tend to care about it, no? The Philippines originally had 450 hectares or 450,000 hectares of mangrove forest, but unfortunately this was declined because of the conversion into fish pond. Ang uban nagamit ng cut og mangrove para i-convert the fish pond. And that's the reason why na introduce ang aqua silviculture. If you search the word aqua silviculture, that is basically growing aquatic species of aquaculture in and without harming the mangrove area. Dili naman siya pang utdo ng mga mangrove. Mag-grow ra kag fish dito pero naradig gyapon ng mangrove. And then some of the reasons are excessive logging because for charcoal, for firewood, and for timber. So those are the threats for mangroves. So sooner or later, when you will become a fisheries professional, please take note that information dissemination, not just the law enforcement, is vital in your nature of work. Dili lang ta perminti mangdakop, dili lang ta perminti kundakpon, magsilot dayon, magmulta, or so on and so forth. Kinahanglan pod mahibawan sa mga tao kung mali ba na siya or sakto ba na siya. Unsay impact anang ilang gihimo. Unsay mahitabo kung imo nang himuon ana. Information dissemination before law enforcement. Kay dili man ka pwede mangdakop og tao nga wala makabalo sa balaod. So sooner or later you will be in the workplace. I hope you will manage well your resources here in Siargao, and I hope to see you in the field soon. So again, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for staying tuned to up to this moment. It's quite 50 minutes of lecture, no? Sa ato ang cover for this module. Our next topic will deal on the marine ecosystems. We will talk about the importance of marine ecosystem. How does this marine ecosystem also affect the nearby communities, and what are the organisms found commonly in the marine ecosystem? And we will also discuss the two divisions of marine ecosystem, the pelagic zone and the benthic zone. That is later in the next module. So once again, thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you again in our next session of lecture. Thank you.